Hi loves, welcome to today's studio session. It's the summertime and in strawberry season and I couldn't resist but pick this strawberry tart for today's drawing. In this video, I'll show you all of the coloring process and show you the exact colors I'm using. But this is the short version of my real-time drawing tutorial, including the initial sketch, the color selection process, and fully narrated real-time lesson. So if you're interested in drawing with me in this format, then check out my Patreon page. I'll leave the link in the description box. Now let's get back to the drawing. When I saw this reference photo, I thought that this is a lovely composition. The view from the top is one of my favorite angles to draw as a food illustrator. Plus, the object itself is round and very compositionally balanced, and I thought this would be a great idea to draw one of these fruit tarts as an individual illustration. The next thing that drew my attention was color contrast. I have here deep red and burgundy dark colors and also light and airy creamy colors, and this is both lovely color combination, red and cream, and tonal contrast, very dark and very light. Plus, this dessert has various textures: strawberry seeds, glossy jam, airy pastry cream, and a tart shell. And I love drawing various food textures, and that appetizing glossy look just made the decision for me. Strawberries are one of my favorite things in the world to draw, paint or sketch. I love the shape, the color, the texture, and the appetizing look. The strawberries here in this composition and with all of that gloss look like red shiny gems. So I've started to color the illustration from the center outwards. Started from my favorite thing, so to say. Now here the strawberries have pretty unusual angle, and this is understandable when you look at the photo, but how do you draw strawberries that way so the viewer understands the point of view? I think the main thing that can help your viewer to understand the angle is to use your values. The darkest deep rich red tones will be in the bottom because there will be a lot of shadows, and the lightest areas will be on the top of the strawberries. That's why the lightest areas and the brightest gloss is on the tip of the strawberries. Now the next thing is textures and the seeds in this specific illustration, and I need to draw those seeds in the right places so the brain understands on which part of the strawberry it is looking. The rest of the objects in this illustration are much simpler, that's why the viewer can read them easily. As I've already said, the shadows and highlights here are very important. The most of the beginners I usually tend to not to add enough volume, not enough of dark colors. So here I say go for it and not to be afraid to make really deep, rich burgundy colors. And as for the highlights, I'd say the opposite. Yes, we can see super glossy areas, but if we'll add too much of them, there will be a little bit of mess, so we need to pick 3 or 4 main glossy highlights and the rest should be much more subtle. Let's talk about color, and here we should not forget about the temperature contrast. The warmer colors are on the light areas and the cooler temperature is in the shade. My main red colors for the strawberries are warm reds, but on the tips of the strawberries I am using very light orange, and my dark reds are on the cooler side. This way I have not only tonal contrast light and dark, but also temperature warm on the light areas and cool on the dark. As for the pastry cream here, I am using very light beige colors. And for the shadowed areas, I am using light ochre shades because ochre colors are a bit muted, and this is one more characteristic that we would like to see in shade, not bright and vibrant colors, but a little bit dull and muted, and the ochre colors are perfect for very light objects in the shade. For the tart base, I am going very simple with colors, and I am using dark ochre or yellowish brown colors. For the mint leaf and adding a fresh touch to the illustration, I've chosen yellowish green colors. I am drawing this illustration on a white background, so I have no color, no other objects here. So for my cast shadow from the object, I am choosing a neutral gray. It is great when the shadow is cooler in tone. That's why if I had some other colors here, I would go for a cooler gray. But on the white and neutral background, the neutral gray does this job perfectly. So this is my artistic choice for this kind of illustrations. Now let's talk about the focal point. In order for your artwork to be pleasant for the eye, you need to have one specific area that you want to draw the most attention, and the rest of the piece should be supporting areas. Once you know the focal point, the main object you want to draw the attention to, you can go ahead and add all of those details, all of those bright and vibrant colors, and all of those bright highlights, because this is the main character of your piece. And in my case, these are the strawberries in the center, which is obvious. That's why I'm going for my brightest and vibrantest colors, adding the deepest shadows, the bright highlights, and adding a lot of textures. But if I'll go ahead and add all of those details, all of the bright and vibrant colors to the rest of the piece, this will be an informational overload for the viewer's brain, and we don't want that. That's why for the rest of my artwork I am not trying to make the accents on the textures and super vibrant colors. This way I keep the balance, the one area with lot of textures, vibrancy and highlights, and the rest are more calm where the viewer can rest. This time I've chosen to color from the center to the outwards, but my center is red, rich and vibrant, and my outer areas are very light, and if you won't be careful, you can drag your vibrant red colors onto your light pastry cream. That's why the safest option would be in this specific case to color from the light pastry cream to the dark and rich strawberries. But it doesn't mean that you can't color the way I do here, you just need to be a little bit more cautious. Now you might ask me a question. Yes, this is an aesthetically pleasing dessert, but why would I make an art with it? Is it worth to be an art object? And my answer is absolutely yes. It is worth to be captured as an art object only just because you want to, or I want to. But I have a reason for that. This dessert is meant to be eaten very soon, and I want to capture this shape, this freshness, and its colors and design. This way you capture something everyday, something simple, and something that won't last long, and you capture it on your paper. I think there is something poetic in this. You capture an everyday object and seal it in time. Now you can see how I made in various textures to the tart base. I used dots and irregular motions with my brush nib and also added in some textures and highlights with the white colored pencil. Remember I told you that there is a focal point in the piece and the supporting areas. Now this area is definitely supportive, but it doesn't mean that I won't use any textures or colors whatsoever. Now this is the decision that you make as an artist, when is enough or when is the lack of something. I think that for the realistic and more appetizing look, I should still add those textures even on the supporting areas. The same goes for this mint leaf. This is not a main object, but this is an accent, and I want to add a little bit of interest as well. That's why I am making a temperature difference. My light green is a little bit more yellowish and my dark green is a little bit cooler. And I am also defining some veins and even darkening and cooling the shadows with help of my neutral gray. After drawing this illustration, I couldn't help but notice that everything that includes strawberries immediately draws my attention. I can stop and stare on the shape, the color, the size of the seeds, and the angle in which the strawberries lay. I immediately estimate the light condition and the angle I would use for my painting. The more you study the object, the more it draws your attention and you start noticing very little things and details that you haven't seen before. Now if you draw or paint, let me know your favorite objects for art. And if you don't, let me know what objects are your favorite to observe. And now this is my final result. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. And if you would like to draw with me in real time, then check out my Patreon page for the real-time lesson. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next videos. Bye for now!